Hey folks, it's John Brown Jr. You know, when I bought this small piece of property in north central Louisiana, it was really thick, it was really overgrown. Nothing had been done with it, looked like, in decades. Uh, there were a few deer tracks that we found, probably more hog tracks than deer tracks, honestly. But there were no turkey tracks, and I knew that there were turkeys in this area. On two sides of the property, I'm bordered by Weyerhaeuser Pine Plantation. One side has a cattle pasture on it, and then on the fourth side is woods very similar to what I had purchased here. I knew that I wanted a place that I could come during the spring and hear turkeys gobble. And I wasn't going to let the fact that it was a small piece of property, and when I say small, I'm talking less than 100 acres, I wasn't going to let that stand in the way of not being able to have a place to hear turkeys gobble in the spring. Over the course of the year after we purchased the property, we began to take some steps that really made a big difference to the turkey population. This property is broken up into a bottom with a large creek running through it, and then a high ridge area with a lot of hardwood down along the creek area, pines up on the ridges, just what you'd expect in North Louisiana. So one of the first things that we did was we found a small logger to come in and thin the property out. We took out as much of the sycamore and elm and hackberry that he could take and sell to someone. Immediately, that made a huge difference. We began to see oak regeneration within a few months of that taking place. We began to see a lot of native and natural forbs and vegetation growing up because the sunlight was now able to hit the ground. In addition to the thinning, we put in 3 food plots, and they ranged in size from just a quarter of an acre all the way up to a little over 2 acres. The biggest food plot we have is that size. And we keep something in it most of the year. That made a big difference right there. Almost immediately, I began to get, a few photos of more deer coming. And then in the spring, all of a sudden, the turkeys showed up in these open areas. I began to get groups of gobblers showing up and looking around at these new openings. They knew that these were places that they were going to be able to find hens once breeding season came. The last thing that I did that I feel like made a huge difference is we burned the property. And yes, we did burn through the hardwoods. I made sure to clear any debris and stuff away from the base of those hardwoods. And then I picked a very cold day to try to protect those hardwoods from getting too much fire. Now, did I burn some hardwoods? Yes, I did. I did. Within a few months, you could see where the fire had penetrated some of those hardwoods, and you began to see some of the fungus growing at the base of those trees. But for me, it was worth it, because what I did was I was able to clear out that ground clutter and open it up even more, which allowed those turkeys again to feel safe in there. They could see approaching danger. I also burned on the upper ridge through the pines, and that's where it made a huge difference. In fact, I really didn't see turkeys show up on the property in numbers until after I had burned the property. Now, I won't burn the hardwoods again. I've already done my thinning in there, and I don't have any reason to burn through there again to burn ground clutter and get stuff off the ground. I will continue to burn on my ridges, though, in what's dominated by pines. I can do that every year, and it will make a huge difference to turkeys. I also established a relationship with the NRCS here locally. And let me tell you, they came out with 3 biologists, and they walked over the entire property with me, and we developed a plan that I felt like, and they felt like, would also not just help the wild turkey population here, but my deer as well. Lastly, when March came, I shut the property down. Now, I know this isn't something that everyone can do who owns a small piece of property. But I was able to do that. There was no more work being done on the property. Probably the only vehicle that came in and out was the Entergy guy that comes and reads the meter, and that was about it. I had my cameras going, so when opening day rolled around, I really had a good idea of where the turkeys were on my place, where they were roosting, where they were loafing during the day, where they were bugging, things like that. And I think shutting the property down for that 3 or 4 weeks prior to opening day made a tremendous difference. Here in Louisiana, private landowners own the overwhelming majority of property. And I dare to say that that's made up of small pieces of property very similar to what I have here. Don't be intimidated by having a small piece of property next to a large piece of property and thinking that you can't draw wildlife to it. You absolutely can. I didn't have a lot of equipment. I had a small tractor, I had a chainsaw, and I had diesel and a box of matches. And that alone made a tremendous difference in the habitat here on this place. So if you want to improve your habitat, don't be intimidated by the process. Follow the steps, let the professionals help you, and I guarantee you'll see an improvement in your wildlife.